I've missed you, Geoff.
I've missed you, Kira. I mean, really, you're...
I don't know if I believe that. I'm not sure entirely how sincere that was.
I mean, just...
Do you want to try that one again?
I mean, like none other.
Yeah?
You know, you've been traveling.
I've been traveling. I've been in the other part of planet Earth, in the southern hemisphere in New Zealand.
Wow.
Where it's cold, and then I come back and it's 95 here, and I'm like, what? My body's like, I'm sorry, what?
Because in Australia, it's just opposite.
It's opposite weather. Yeah. So right now it's like cold and rainy, but I'm back, and I've missed everyone, and I've missed our podcast, and I missed you.
We're brother and sister. That's becoming a tradition. We love mentioning brother and sister at the beginning of every podcast now.
That's because we are, in theory, in a simulation world.
Twins.
We can be whatever we want.
In the simulation world, that's right. And we are, it's Launched Radio. We are at episode 16.
Crazy.
Geoff and Kira. And today we have quite a topic.
It's such an amazing topic. When you sent it to me, I was like, I'm always pretty open-minded, or I feel like I'm pretty open-minded. And then you sent it to me, and I was like, all right, I got to do some digging. And I did some digging on it, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is a very fascinating topic, and my head is exploding. And it's the topic today that we'll be discussing is the simulation theory.
The simulation theory, we've touched on it before in other episodes, but there's a lot more to discuss about it, just going into more detail on it, what people are thinking. More and more people, the bottom line is these days, are starting to believe that simulation theory to be true. And what simulation theory is made up of, the parts basically, is that some other being or alien or ourselves in the future, we don't know, but it's the belief that something created a simulated universe, which is in essence us.
Correct.
And it originally, just to give the listeners more background, it started, Nick Bostrom proposed this, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And he wrote a theory that literally pretty much proved it. And ever since he wrote simulation theory, big scientists and, even some world leaders, a lot of really smart people have come out, Elon Musk being one of them, Neil deGrasse Tyson another, and there's a list, saying that it is 100% true. Not 100%, but 99.9%. Elon Musk believes there's billions to one chance that we're not in a simulation. So if you talk to Elon Musk, there's videos of him saying it, quotes of him saying it. Yeah. He basically believes in simulation theory. And it is interesting. I definitely find it interesting. I heard about it a lot from watching Scott Adams, Dilbert creator and cartoonist Scott Adams, who I think is brilliant, who talks about it quite a bit. And we're gonna today. I figure we'll talk some. Yeah. There's a video I saw online from this Open Your Reality creator who spoke about simulation theory last week, and he did like a video where he talked about some ways of thinking that he thinks we as a society are evolving into and towards. And just hearing him give these ways of thinking in this video, this Open Your Reality, I'll put the link to his YouTube below, and then hearing Scott Adams talk about it and other people like Elon Musk, it just really intrigued me. And I'll also put Nick Bostrom's theory in the link below the podcast so you can see all the information on it. I'll also put this on my YouTube, which we've been doing. But I figured today we talk about it, but we also talk about it in the context of what this Open Your Reality creator talked about, the ways of thinking he mentioned, and how much that applies. And then, I really want to hear what the listeners have to say and the viewers on YouTube. Feel free to respond, to comment. on the YouTube version of it, which has its own channel now. It's on the Launch TV channel, but it's Launch Radio. Feel free to comment and check that out because, it's it's very good. It's a very interesting, intriguing subject to talk about.
Did you ever play Sims?
A little bit. I played a lot of Nintendo and Sega. Now, how does Sims factor in? It was the computer version of...
Yeah, well, they do. I think PlayStation also has Sims. I was a total gamer. I was like dork gamer, you know? Like I wanted the chair where like you strap in the whole like...
Oh, you went all out.
Yeah. I'd go to GameStop and get my games and the guys would always be like, "You're not a gamer, you're buying these for your boyfriend." I'm like, no. I'm a RPG player. And they're like, "Woof." An RPG is role-playing game. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones I liked. I didn't like first shooters, which would be like Halo or Call of Duty. Role-playing games is where you are an avatar and you're in the simulation of the world and you play certain character and you're experiencing this most amazing world that these creators, made. So what's interesting is it's become even the advancements of gaming have created such an amazing worlds like Fortnite. And I know the other day, a 16-year-old just won the championship for Fortnite, which is a very similar simulation type of thing. So basically what the simulation theory is saying is that our entire reality as we know it is a very advanced computer simulation that has been created. And what I really loved about the video that we had watched is that he had created a philosophy. I forgot his name, by the way.
The Nick Bostrom or the video we watched?
The video we watched.
The Only Open Your Reality is the channel. He doesn't say his name.
Oh, smart.
Yeah.
Not to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's always better not to put your name to certain things just in case. He created these tenements that are like the philosophy of understanding. And I think the one that, and we'll go through them, but I think the one that stuck out for me was that the only reason why we are here is to evolve our consciousness. And from that point on, everything kind of goes down from there in terms of how we act, how we judge people, our fear-based realities, realizing that this isn't a deterministic world that we live in, that we're all just playing into a simulation that is controlled by a consciousness. And the bodies that we have are just part of that game and consciousness that we decide to choose.
Yeah, I think, that's one of the things he discusses in it, one of his new ways of thinking. And that plugs into just so many current religions and belief systems. It almost is kind of a tie between them all, and that we're all trying to evolve into our greater spirit, our greater essence of who we are. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's actually what he said word for word, right? That evolved into our higher consciousness.
Right.
And
which is fair because there are people that have been able to do that. When you look at Buddhist monks and masters who have actually been able to break the so-called simulation rules of the game of being able to do things that are not possible, but they're able to crack the code in doing things that blows our mind, in those circumstances, they're able to reach a higher consciousness. Yeah. So in a sense, we are a very powerful being, much more than we actually give ourselves credit for, in the sense that we can take ourselves to way more levels than we can process at times. And that's the goal of our entire life here, is to expand that consciousness.
So let's say that is the goal, which I think a lot of people would agree with.
Yeah, I think it's
Most
fair.
people would
Yeah.
agree with. If that is the goal, what are the ways of thinking that we need to adopt? What can people do in their lives and at home, just day to day, to feel that way, to feel more complete, to get more out of life, to feel like they're to bring the elusive happiness, into their lives? What are the things that they can do? What are the things that they can endorse and go for? And he lists some things off,
Yep.
some different ways, some of which are more controversial than others, but I found them all to be very interesting. I think the first one that he talked about was, I believe it was like race relations, right?
Yeah, prejudice and race do not belong in a simulation where we are trying to evolve to our higher consciousness. If we are all just embodying these bodies that our consciousness decided to take on, we should be judging people based upon their actions and their consciousness, not what they look like, because that's just the body that they decided to choose. I know this all sounds a little like alienish, but when you start, however,
we're leaving it up subjective.
We're leaving it up.
We're just restating and giving people interesting things to think about.
Correct. So there's, in order to achieve and evolve to your higher consciousness, hatred and fear do not belong in it. So you shouldn't hate someone of what they look like. You should only be basing and judging people on their actions
and their beliefs and their mostly their actions, their beliefs, and the essence of who the person is.
Correct.
And I feel like we're slowly but steadily working towards that.
Yeah.
We don't get there very easily, but people are working on it. There's still a lot of hatred in the world. But the point he makes is the sooner and quicker we can get to not judging people based on their gender or their race, that we all can just come from a place of love and getting along, that is going to evolve our consciousness. That is going to advance the human species up to the next level by all having that love and understanding for one another.
Well, what I got from it, and tell me what you think. Basically, what I heard him say was that hate is on the lower rung of our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like so much better than that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened.
I think I lost sound.
Yes, that's okay. But that's what I heard,
Totally.
is that hate is so beneath us that we have so many more levels to go to reach the higher consciousness, and hatred and judging someone based upon the color of their skin or of their, what they look like is such a low type of way to live in this simulation.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that it pertains to
I'm listening. I'm just.
And I think most people would agree with that it's mostly about there we go.
Yeah.
Got it. We'll edit those out in the final.
No, leave them in.
We'll edit those out. We're having fun. You guys get to see like the rough live version,
and then the YouTube's all the
polished and Apple and Google and everything.
It's all the polished ones.
They're witnessing the live. That's right. But yeah, I think most people would agree that hatred, and most sane people would agree that hatred and evil and all that are the lowest level of awareness. So I think, yes, that's absolutely right. And the more that we can get people higher up and understanding closer to love, the better. And that a principle in that is not judging people based on their race and gender, judgment overall just causes so many problems. People judging each other. Prejudice.
Based on what someone looks like, or the gender, or the color of their skin, and not even knowing who that person is, or what their conscious or their essence of their being actually is.
Right.
So, the theory is that our consciousness decided to choose this body, that we live within the simulation game called life. And we should not judge each other based upon the body we decided to choose. We should base each other on the essence, because what he says is that death is not the end of our consciousness. Though we, within the simulation of the world that we live in, matrix is another term, I guess, your consciousness cannot be touched or damaged. Though when we're on our earth, we're obviously sad when our loved ones die because their personality is no longer there.
It's no longer there.
But their consciousness has been released. And essentially, if you believe in reincarnation, that consciousness and that essence is still very much intact, and then can go into another body if it chooses to.
Yes, and I think there's different, when you take as we're going through these, when you take simulation as a whole, there's different belief systems about what happens in the afterlife and what consciousness is, and how that all plays out. Some people go more towards maybe this creature or a future version of ourselves, or this alien created us and they're like witnessing us, and we're connecting more with whoever that is. Or it's just an overall higher version of ourselves when we pass away. Like, people don't know the details behind the simulation. A lot of people automatically think that it would be in computers. That doesn't even necessarily what comprises it. It could be anything. And there's different theories behind it. But more and more people are taking on this. It's increasing. The amount of people is increasing as far as believing that we're in a simulation of some sort.
Well, what's interesting is the simulation only is created, or is only shown to us as we see it. So as we look at it, it's created.
Right.
And that's why we don't see anything different.
Right.
It's rendered as we see it.
Correct.
And that's why people are trying to find the ways to crack it, where if you do look it up, I know there's several astrophysicists that have tried to prove and find the break in the code. And they were able to do it with some like photons and light theory, and the way it's supposed to work and the way it works is not the same as when we actually look at it. And that's when the theory went on its head, and they were like, oh, well, that could potentially
is this the double slit experiment?
Yeah.
Double slit experiment.
Yeah, correct. So it's like, okay, that is a potential of a proof that we do live in a simulation, because we're able to find the breaks in the code of the game that we're in.
That's right. And behind that is the essence of basically everything is these protons, electrons, atoms. These atoms are the basis. When you go to the granular level of us, all they find is atoms. It's a lot of mystery and confusion. And what they found is when they put these atoms through these two slits, light through a board, that they would become a slit pattern through the board. The two slits would become a slit pattern. However, when they observed them, or what would happen is when they would observe them, it's a really hard theory to explain. But what would happen is they would go as two slits of like light that fit the slits perfectly. When they observed them, though, it changed. It flip-flopped, which means when they're watching them, it would become an interference pattern. And then when they're not watching them, it would become back and become a slit pattern again. And something about, and Google this because I'm not the biggest expert on the double slit, but it was about observing the atoms, us at a granular level, which is still us, changed when they were being observed.
Correct.
As opposed to when they were not being observed.
Correct. And they believe that, actually, that was really well done.
That's the most important part to understand.
You did an amazing job with that, because
Thank you. Yeah.
because I'm like, photons and light, and Jeff's over here like double slit theory and like
We get there.
lasers, and I'm like, yes.
We find a way between the two of us to explain these advanced techniques,
Yeah.
if we call it.
I mean, my the way I explain things is
You did a great job.
on a lower level.
Oh, I thought yours was higher. You were advanced. You were like, you had the more advanced consciousness.
You think so?
You were talking about protons, and she's good, man.
No,
she
it's
knows her
photons.
science. Photons. Oh, she said photons. That's great.
I think that is actually a measurement, right? Photon is light measurement.
I thought you gave a fantastic.
All right, well, we'll just go with it.
We'll go with it.
But the double slit, if you do Google it, is really fascinating. Jeff gave a much better explanation than I did. But it's all about the way it was observed. The way we observed it, it changed. But when it wasn't being observed, it stayed the same. And then the scientists were like, WTF.
Right.
And we're talking scientists that aren't like guys that live in like, middle desert. We're talking about like Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson and like some serious like astrophysicists that say more than likely that we live in a simulation and believe the simulation theory, which is kind of mind blowing and a little sketch, because you're like, I just want to know, am I in a game? Sometimes like you'll go through life, you're like, I feel like I'm in a game right now. Everything is just insane, or like whatever it is. And maybe you might be kind of accurate when you have those thoughts.
You know how you can tell? You know how you can often tell? Is use prediction as a mechanism for how in control you are and connected to your higher consciousness.
Interesting.
Start looking at the world and start looking at things happening and start making silent predictions to yourself and writing them down, or what you think might happen with that in the future, or which direction you think it's going. If you're right on more than you're wrong, you're in control of what's happening around you. So you have to trust your ability to predict based on what's happening, because simulation believes the world is a probability database.
Correct.
That everything's based on probability.
Right.
So if you're predicting within the realm of probability, you're in more control of the movie you're watching.
And the outcome of it.
And the outcome.
And they're saying we don't live in a deterministic, basically it's flipping on the head of that we have any sort of control.
That's right.
There's the free will argument, and that is saying basically that it doesn't exist.
The simulation theory, most people believe that free will doesn't exist.
Correct.
That's correct. Or most of free will doesn't exist.
What's interesting? You do all of those amazing YouTube videos on Mandela, and this goes directly into the Mandela effect of like what we see and what is real, but what is actually real, and the mind tricks that go into it as well.
Well, and I leave it open as to what causes the Mandela effect. I mean, I believe it's false memories, but I'm open to other things. But another big thing that the simulation theory talks about is history, and how when there's something happens, until something hardens in history that's tangible, that because things are probability based, that there's a million different ways that happen until it hardens. And what some people believe is the Mandela effect is these floating things that haven't hardened, that were always kind of not totally there by evidence, still kind of floating around. So they're able to change in the time continuum, because they haven't hardened yet. Like if there's a court case going on, what was the court case back in the fall? Kavanaugh and there was a woman, Judge Kavanaugh, drinking at a party, and they both had completely different records
Correct.
of what happened. And simulation theory and people thinking this way would agree that
Both are right.
happened
Right.
until there's physical evidence that one happened over the other.
That was an interesting trial because it was the judge to get judged in the Supreme Court. And both had very strong backing and moral code and a lot of respect. So it wasn't like you could side with one or the other, and both were absolutely 1000% sure of what happened in their point of view. And
1000%.
And it's like, okay, well, who's right then? Maybe both.
Maybe both. We don't know. And I mean, we literally don't know. And the same goes for political things. The same goes for, some people believe news is fake. An article is fake. Some believe it's not fake. We're literally living in different movies that our brain has created. Like, that's the essence behind it.
Well, that was the other, the gentleman that we watched the video on, the philosophy of understanding, and and the other piece of that, he had 5 kind of tenements that he put together. One of which we've talked about was the number one rule is to evolve, or the number one reason why we're here is to evolve our consciousness. That's the true measure of success. And making good choices while you're inside the body that you chose, with love and respect. And this virtual reality, we're in a virtual reality trainer of consciousness, basically.
Is what he said, yeah.
Correct. The other one was about racism and how it doesn't really exist in a simulation.
Correct.
The third one,
which we need to discuss.
Would have been like the death is not truly the end of our consciousness, that our consciousness can't be touched or damaged. Our body dies and our personality dies. However, our consciousness can live on in another reincarnated body of our choosing.
Correct.
Third our fourth and fifth ones. The fourth one is
really interesting.
Really interesting. And instead of competition, because we're raised as such, life should be focused on cooperation and caring, which is fair, right? But in a capitalist world, competition and society thrives on that. And that's what we've always been kind of drilled in our head. But in this philosophy of understanding and evolving into a higher consciousness, competition, you don't get anywhere higher in your consciousness, just like hatred wouldn't get you anywhere higher in your consciousness, but instead cooperation and caring would.
Yeah, and I think he made the discrepancy that about emphasizing this more in schools and such, and how people should cooperate and caring. And I think that's important. But he also made the discrepancy that you take sports, for example, and sports are based around competition. And he wanted people to know that he's not saying he wants to get rid of sports or fun competition, friendly competition, where both sides know that it's just like, I can care greatly about Kira as brother and sister and everything, but I can compete with Kira, and Kira can compete with me.
Correct.
And we can know that we're just in friendly competition.
Correct.
Within our businesses, but still love each other nonetheless. But then we're going to compete hard against each other.
Correct.
As an example, you look at sports teams, that's what they do.
Right.
The Cardinals love the Cubs. They hate the Cubs, but they don't want to kill the Cubs.
Right.
So it's friendly competition. And I think what he was emphasizing was competition shouldn't go away. Sports is good for the competitive capitalist, all of that. Right. But it should be more based around love for each other.
And caring and respect.
And respect and cooperation. And he mentioned like the Amish versus gangs. Like gangs are just competition, kill, all of that.
Right.
That's hate-based competition. The Amish were around caring, cooperation. They built things, they created things. So I think what he was getting at was we need to get to a society where competition doesn't go away. It just has cooperation and caring around
Correct.
it as the foundation for it.
Which I love. I mean, it's hard to, as much as this is like the theory, the simulation theory, everyone has their own kind of ideas about it and what they decide is factual in their own life. It's hard to argue with these where it's like, hey, racism is on a lower rung of your consciousness, and doesn't belong in society. Fair, whether or not you believe in simulation theory or not. Cooperation versus competition and caring and love and respect. Yeah, like hard to argue, And I think we'll wrap it up with the fifth and final tenement, which is actually one that may be a little bit more on the controversial side, which is he says doing away with obsolete beliefs and religions, because religions are all a fear-based, man-made, and it doesn't allow you to expand your own consciousness. It keeps you in a very tight line, and it doesn't want you to go over one side or the other. Now, he does say that, there was a time when religious beliefs and having religion made sense because it created a moral code in people and helped further that along, but it doesn't evolve, or it doesn't even help evolve your consciousness. We all believe that there is some kind of creator, generally speaking, that someone created this. Do we need a religion to push us into a corner to where we can't actually expand outside of those beliefs? And he's saying, no, it's time to do away with those obsolete belief system.
Yes, and by no means are we saying people need to adopt this only. This is what you need to do. But, I mean, I'm raised Presbyterian Christian, like that's my religion, and I don't believe by any means that religion should go away. Like, I think religion is a very good thing as far as people having a belief. I believe people should do that. But I think what he says is very interesting about, like, that religion is starting to cause us problems. It's always caused some problems, but that's getting to be more and more. And we should be aware of that and open to each other's beliefs and what they are, and maybe try to come together more as one, as opposed to, it causes a lot of fear-based and hate-based. Basically what Kira was saying.
Basically having just flexibility of your belief.
Flexibility.
Religion, they're man-made, and religion wants you to believe a certain book, so to speak, or, physically, or,
Yeah.
But what he's saying is that stifles. It's stifles, right?
Yeah, stifles.
Stifles. Oh no, stifle is a part of a horse.
Good times.
It stifles your ability to expand out of those strict belief systems that are man-made within a religious system.
And I think that, so...
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair. And I think that, we aren't by any size telling people what they should believe and what they shouldn't. Kira and I both are very, it's subjective, keep things open, but it's something people should keep in mind. So this was fascinating. I'm going to put up links to all of this stuff on the YouTube. I'll put it, in the comments section. Yeah,
and especially Scott Adams thing, we'll definitely kind of do the articles of the ones that we've seen, like Elon Musk talk about it, and Neil Tyson, and we'd love to hear your feedback on it. Yes. This is like such a fascinating topic, and this isn't like you have to dig on Google to find information about this. This is like national NBC, CNN, news that they've been doing for a bit now. So check it out. Leave comments. Would love to get your feedback on it.
NBC News did a column 2 weeks ago on simulation
Yeah.
theory. So this is getting more and more mainstream. More and more people are starting to take on this belief. It's growing. It's something to keep an eye on. So we wanted to do one on this because it applies to our AI futuristic thing combined with humanity. We like discussing both.
Correct.
Here at Launch Radio.
I'm so excited to be back. I missed you, Geoff.
I mean, gosh, and I missed you, Kira.
I feel like I didn't get a parade or fanfare when I came back, but
next time.
Okay.
Next time.
Next podcast number 17.
Number 17, we will have a fanfare and a parade.
Okay. To welcome back Kira from her travels in July.
That's right. That's our plan. And
tell your avatar.
I'll tell my avatar
to talk to my avatar.
Talk to your avatar, and we will do that. So
fun! Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in.
Here at Launch Radio, we are the future, and the future is Launch Radio. So thank you all. Back next week, episode 17. This was Simulation Theory. I'm Geoff.
I'm Kira.
See you next time. Bye.